We're talking about common entrepreneur mistakes this week here on the channel, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring this to faith and focus as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. But before we dive into this, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a tutorial or upload. Okay, so over on TSA Weekly this week, I was talking about the top 3 mistakes that I see solo and small business owners making that I have made myself. And, it's going to be no different here on Faith and Focus. This is absolutely a mistake that I continue to make and I'm working on. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it with you guys, because this is something that is an ongoing process for us. Unlike some of the mistakes over on TSA Weekly, where you can kind of learn your lesson and then put those mistakes in the past, I feel like this one here that I see a lot of Christian entrepreneurs making is one that we have to remind ourselves of kind of regularly. And that would be not asking God what his plan is. I do this constantly. I start my morning, in my devotional with my prayer time, like I have told you guys in the past, but I don't always remember to ask God, what is your plan for me? What is your plan for my business? What is your plan for my day? I almost always have something completely planned out for the day, whether like today, this day that I am recording this, I am spending a good couple of hours doing batch creating of content and stuff for the channel, things like that, just trying to get ahead of the game so that I don't feel, too stressed out. But, there may be something else that God hasn't planned for today. Or maybe he's just going to affirm my plan and say, yeah, I think that's great use of your time, because then it'll free you up to be more restful and relaxed in the future, be able to be more present with your clients. Yes, I think absolutely that is a great use of your time, right? That may be what his plan is as well. But I forget to ask. And even more important than what is your plan for my day is, what is your plan for my business? What direction am I supposed to be going in? It was a long time coming, me even starting this Faith and Focus podcast. I felt the call to it like months before, but I wasn't really listening. I wasn't asking, what is your plan? Where should I be taking my business? Should I be going in that direction? I feel this desire to talk to Christian entrepreneurs and make this a part of what I do on the channel, but I didn't ask. And I think part of why I didn't ask, honestly, was fear, because I was afraid to hear the answer. I think on some levels, I kind of knew what his plan was and it scared me. So I was like, I'm not gonna ask. I'm gonna tell you my plan for the day and say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. If it's your will, let this be successful. Saying all the things that you're supposed to say when you're praying and all that good stuff, showing gratitude, all of that, asking for help, absolutely. But then not stopping and listening to what he was trying to tell me, not listening to his guidance and following his plan. And like I said, I think that we have to remind ourselves that this is something we have to do every day, like on a regular basis, even. Even if we start doing it every day, it becomes a little too routine, maybe. And so then we spend that time listening and then we get distracted and we start thinking about something else, or we don't take the time to really affirm whether or not what we thought in that moment was actually coming from God, or if it was just a mental tangent, right? Because that happens too. Sometimes, especially if it's a big direction that we see God leading us towards, or we think that God is leading us towards, we need to kind of be a little bit more open to looking for that affirmation and not just jumping on it because it popped into our minds in the moment that we were listening for God to talk, right? I think sometimes we do that and then our minds wander to different things and we attribute that to God is telling us something. It's not necessarily true. It doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from someplace bad, but it might just be coming from us, in which case we're again not following God's plan. So there was this little mini book that I read. It was a Lysa TerKeurst book, and I think it's called Is God Speaking to Me? I found it really interesting because there was a year of time where I was really, really struggling with knowing the difference between exactly what I'm talking about, when something that came into my mind was actually God speaking to me or when it was just me. She gave us 5 tools in that book to use to kind of take that thought or that plan or that idea and kind of run them through, like almost like a test, if you will, to see if it lines up with maybe God is speaking to me versus this is just me. So I'm going to just share those. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm just going to share those 5 tools with you so that you can ask these questions of yourself when something comes into your mind and you think that it might be God's plan. It might be a direction he's trying to lead you in, but you're not quite sure. So ask yourself these 5 questions, okay? First question, does it align with scripture? I mean, this is somewhat obvious, right? It doesn't mean that this idea particularly is found in scripture or anything like that, but does it go against anything in scripture? Is it something that, would go against the 10 Commandments or the Golden Rule or anything like that, right? If it doesn't align with scripture, then it's pretty obviously not coming from God. Second question, is it consistent with God's character? Is it integrous? Is it something that is helping you to treat people the way that God would treat them? It kind of comes down to, if you're in my generation, you might already know this, or this might already be popping into your mind, but WWJD, right? What would Jesus do? Does this align with something that is part of God's character? If it does, then yeah, it might be God speaking to you. Question number 3, and this one I think is a big one. Is it confirmed by messages heard in church or during personal Bible study? So this is where I was talking about looking for those affirmations in other places. Like if an idea comes into your mind and then it also happens to be, something that your pastor says on Sunday or a Bible study that you're reading, a devotional, you start seeing it in multiple places. Or maybe it's even coming in an affirmation from a friend or a family member. They come to you and unsolicited say, I was thinking the other day, like, this is something that I think you would be so good at, or whatever it might be. These types of affirmations are often God's way of letting us know that he is guiding that conversation and that he is the one trying to tell you something. Question number 4, and this one I kind of love, but it is also that scare factor, that fear factor, right? Is it beyond the individual's own ability? So when God is speaking to us and trying to, I think specifically when it comes to things like in business and stuff like that, if he is guiding you down a path that's maybe a little bit scary and feels like something that you can't do on your own, that actually might be a sign that it is God speaking to you, because you're not likely to guide yourself that far out of your comfort zone. Usually things like that are actually coming from someone else. And yeah, they could come from somebody else that's physically in your life, but definitely if it's something that you felt in that moment of reflection when you're trying to listen to God's voice and listen to what he's trying to tell you, if it feels scary and you're hesitant and you're like, I don't know, I'm going to push that away. Yeah, that is probably a pretty good sign. That actually might be one of the number 1 signs here that is God speaking to you. And then the last question that you're supposed to ask yourself is, would it please God? And to me, this one is a given, right? It goes along with, does it align with scripture, and is it part of God's character? If it wouldn't be pleasing to God, then it's obviously not coming from him. But I think even though it's such a simple and seemingly obvious question, it's one we don't stop to think to ask. So I think it's super important to ask it. So I just want to ask you this week, is there something, well, first off, are you going to God often enough and asking him what his plan is, and then actually shutting up long enough to listen to what he's trying to tell you? But then if you are doing that and you're still feeling confused and not clear on what your direction is or where he's trying to take you, ask yourself these questions about what keeps popping into your mind, because there's a good chance if you are spending that time asking God and listening to his response, something might have just come to your mind when I started talking about this. So run it through these questions. Ask yourself, does it align with scripture? Is it consistent with God's character? Is it confirmed in other places? Is it being affirmed by other people? Is it beyond my own ability? And would it please God? Ask yourself these questions. And if there's something that comes to mind and you're comfortable, share it with us in the comments. I hope that this episode inspired and encouraged you. And if it did, please share it with a fellow Christian business owner who might need the same encouragement. Thanks for being here, and God bless.